We've called the meeting to order. We've approved the agenda. We've amended the agenda to add the minutes of the last month's meeting. And a motion was made by John and seconded by Marty in favor of adding the minutes from the last meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Now what we'd like to do is, we'd like to introduce all of ourselves. And I'm Kathy Schutte. I'm the chair of the Forestry Committee.
I'm Gary Murray.
John Rayner, supervisor for the town of Jacobs. Marty Vitak of District 16.
I'm Rich Huber from Mellon and part of 21. And this is Sarah. She's the new office manager for the Forestry Department. Welcome.
Sarah, last name?
Enderle, Enderle.
Enderle. SARAH.
SARA, no H.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Let's go to number 4, WDNDR. Oh, public comments. Public comments, please.
I'm with the DNRs.
Okay. Number 4, the WDNR report.
So Joe Rennick from Forestry, for those of you who don't know me. Yeah, not much to report on so far this year. Through the first month of our fiscal year, we put in about 100 hours on the county forest, which mainly a little bit of sale establishment work, mostly regen work, and then just general forestry time. Apart from that, our technician Andy put in a berm, did some dozer work on county land. I think we helped out with a little bit of invasive species work as far as like garlic mustard pulling. Yeah, other than that, I guess that's it for us with the county anyway. Yeah, I guess a lot of our folks with the DNR forestry anyway have been pretty involved with fire this season. It's been a really dry season in the lake states, so we got a lot of people out Minnesota and Ontario, so kind of scattered all over. And we're looking to stay pretty dry up in northern Ashland County and Bayfield County, so might have a little bit of a fall fire season. It's looking like. I think that's pretty much all we got. Nothing really new or groundbreaking.
Joel, thank you for that good talk about forestry, what you're doing, the 100 hours and stuff like that. We appreciate that. Questions?
Yeah, when you were doing your base species and your recs, do you get involved with the land conservation for the national?
Not with not as far as the county forest is concerned. I personally work with private landowners throughout the county, so I haven't really been involved too heavily in invasive work just because the landowners that I'm working with don't really have too much for invasives, but we probably would work with them.
Do you get involved with bear management or any of the invasive species or anything especially for you?
I haven't. Maybe some of our other foresters out of Washington maybe, but I haven't personally. So.
Any other questions? We'll go to number 4A, fisheries. Under B, wildlife, Jenna Malinowski.
She didn't provide a written report, but she did help us with our invasive species management this spring. Her and her technician, I guess, came and helped with our garlic mustard project, and her technician's been working all summer on wildlife opening maintenance. So her technician's been on the county forest mowing wildlife openings.
Okay, good. And if they aren't here to give a report card for Chris, that's nice that you can give a physical report
Sure.
of what they're doing.
Yep.
I just don't like to write no report at all.
And to jump back to fisheries quick, I guess an update there is that fisheries position out of the Ashland and Aaron County was vacant, but now it's been lateral back into, so we have Zach is.
Is it?
Yeah, he works out of Ashland now instead of Mercer, so I think I assume he's already in that role.
He's been here before.
He was, yeah, he worked out of role for like a year and then came back, so.
4C, the forestry, Avery
That was,
Joe gave that report. Avery's at a meeting today.
Okay. Number 4 or number 5, snowmobile ATV report by Bill Chandler.
No, if Bill's on the Zoom or not.
No, he's not on the Zoom.
We just completed end of July, the grant application. Working with Kathy Chandler through the Alliance to get all the grant stuff submitted to the state. We got approval for next year's grant. We're waiting here now on the supplemental, how much money we'll get back on that side of the grant program. So that's all been entered and sent in by the deadline, which is August 1st.
Do you think it'll stay the same or do you think it'll have a less or more? What you got?
I don't remember what, I think last year was 100%. I think it'll probably be a little less than that this year. I think it will be in that 85 to 90% range, just based on the weather and what went on trail wise last year. But we probably won't know that until middle of September is usually when we start to hear back from the state after they've processed all those applications. Because they can't make a proration on the supplemental until we get all that grant apps from all the different counties. So.
It'd be September before you hear anything about the grants then?
Well, the grant for next year has been approved and we'll get the 50% payment sometime this fall. But the supplemental dollar amount from last year's program, so the monies that exceeded the $60,000 that we get on an annual basis from the state, we call that supplemental. So if we spend $75,000, it's $15,000 over our grant amount. Then we apply for that. Let's try to get that whole $15,000 reimbursed. But typically it gets prorated because all the counties in the state typically exceed the base grant amount. So we get it prorated. So we might only get, say, 80% of that $15,000 back. But we won't know what that number is until probably the middle of September before the state gets it to us.
So where would the grant really come from?
The grant comes from the state.
From the state?
Yep. We get, I want to say it's $302 per mile from the state right now for the 214 miles that are in the county. It comes to just over $60,000. And that's what we run the snowmobile trail system on. It's at $60,000. Once they exceed that in dollar amount in a given grooming year, we apply for that money to be reimbursed as well, and that's what gets prorated. That's the supplemental portion.
When the Forest Service gives money for the road, do you get any of that money or is it the townships?
This is township. We're not.
You guys don't get any of that?
We're not involved. We've only got maybe a mile of common border with the Forest Service. So we don't really share, we don't play in the same sandbox. They're more on the western side of the county. We're all on the eastern side of the county. So us and the Forest Service don't really cross streams very often.
And they did figure it out.
Did we hear it?
He's off camera, so he must be talking.
Okay. Did you
I'm
hear
back.
anything back from Bill?
Okay.
Thank you. We asked him if he can come to a meeting.
He was going to try to be here today. He's got multiple doctor's appointments and stuff, so I'm assuming he must be at a doctor's appointment today. But he comes to all the first of the month, first Wednesday of the month.
For the snowmobile.
For Forestry, he comes to these meetings.
What's his health and stuff? Is he doing proper work and stuff?
So far,
Yes.
Yep.
I know we have a lot of help. Just wondering always what they're doing.
he does all of his trail work in the wintertime. He covers what we need him to cover. Between him and Bruce, we've got eyes on the trail every day. I talked to Bruce about it in March, probably right at the end of snowmobile season. And Bruce said every time that he found an issue or a concern and passed on to Pat or Bill, it was rectified within 2 or 3 days.
So Chris, here's a question I have. Bill used to come to every meeting that we had.
Bill does come to every meeting, but he doesn't want to come physically to the meeting because of COVID. So he calls in on the Zoom meetings every time.
So he's here every month.
Correct.
So we should be able to ask him questions. We didn't know he was on the Zoom.
Well, he
Not,
gave a report at the last meeting on Zoom.
Was that in the minutes? Yeah, we would. When he hands in a case or a voucher to get paid every month, we never see it. Get a list of the months that he sent in a page, what he's paid by month for this year. He used to come.
Well, he used to come before the pandemic, but he's 82 years old and doesn't feel comfortable coming to a meeting in the closed space, so he comes in on the Zoom. That's why we offer the Zoom access to the meeting.
Okay, is he just doing he's not doing where you can see him, he's
No,
doing the
I
audio?
don't, he's just on the audio, correct?
Okay, so any questions we could ask him would be on audio for him?
Correct.
Okay.
But not today.
he's not here today.
Correct.
We can address that when we get to the snow.
Okay, we'll move on to number 6. It's the recreation officer report for Bruce Jonas.
Talked to Bruce on, I believe it was Monday afternoon. He's scheduled to be off today. So he's not here, but he's just been doing his normal patrol work, spending a lot of time over in the Clam Lake area. Now that he's got new equipment, he's actually out like physically on an ATV doing patrol work in the trails. And spending a lot of time in the Clam Lake area because they've had some issues over there. He also did some lake patrol on Lake Superior with the DNR.
Well, he spends most of his time in the Clam Lake area. Does that mean that Clam Lake has a more of a problem?
He tends to schedule his work around where the problems are in the county. And Clam Lake has been busy this year because there's been a lot of people around ATV, so he's been spending more of his time over there. There's more developed ATV trails in that part of the county as well. So it tends to congregate those people that are coming to the county to ATV. So he has the ability to make more contacts, but he has been dealing with some issues apparently over there. Running the shoulders and the roads and things like that. But he basically, he works the whole county and he just responds to the areas that are having, calls the dispatch or whatever. He tries to address those issues as they come up.
I see Bruce around a lot in the whole areas, but just, and I've repeated this for years, Clam Lake is the ATV hub of this county. They have more ATV traffic and tourism.
Oh, yeah.
It's the biggest draw. You go to Clam Lake Junction on a holiday weekend, there'll be hundreds of ATVs. And they're mud from here to here.
Yeah, the dead horse trail is.
Yeah, they love that, the 5-foot water holes when there's water. Now it's dust, but like you see, it's a huge draw.
And having him wherever the problems are occurring tends to put the problems to bed relatively quickly.
Does he have some help with him?
No. So
I seen him with another officer. I was wondering if there was somebody.
there's nobody else that works for Ashland County that would be helping him, but occasionally he will partner with like federal law enforcement, like the Forest Service law enforcement officer. Occasionally he'll work with some of the Griffwick officers, some of the Indian officers out of Ashland. He'll do some details with them, but typically he's working by himself. And he's the only Ashland County deputy that is prescribed those duties, so.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask, is just the visibility of him, does that have a calming effect on that?
I think it does.
I agree.
The village of Butternut used to have issues with kids just tearing around the village streets all the time. And you rarely hear a four-wheeler buzzing around the town. Occasionally, like on Monday when he stopped at the office, he'll leave and they'll buzz around town like after he's gone, like say, we knew you were here. But he's got that figured out now, so he'll leave. And he'll go up by the school and then turn around and come back and park on the street somewhere and wait for him.
And if we can remind Bruce if he can try to be here for the next month's meeting also.
Again, because we scheduled the meeting for the middle of the month, it's not typically our meeting date.
Yeah,
That's what's
okay,
screwed up the attendance for some of these people.
thank you for
They've got
that.
other things, that, but they all know that the first Wednesday of the month, they gotta keep open for the meeting.
Okay. All right, thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Next, we'll go to the discussion action items, number 7. So I asked Chris if he could get us an update for the carbon credits. I was at the Northwest Regional Planning meeting and they're gonna discuss it at their meeting, so Chris has a letter in a thing about it. So, if you can just briefly remind us again what carbon credits are and why
So-
we're doing it.
We're working on the carbon credit project that we have been developing since May-ish. We found another possible market that we've been doing some research on. We have just recently come to the conclusion it's not the market we want to be in. So I'm going to be packaging up the proposal we have from Blue Source forward to Clark to have him take to Port Council to have it reviewed with our legal eyes to make sure it's what the county is okay with signing. And so hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be able to roll that forward and come bring that to the committee for final approval to take to the phone board. So that's kind of where it's at.
Okay. Chris, did you want to talk to, Church? Sherwood Johnson down at Northwest?
I did.
Oh, you
I
did,
talked to him.
okay,
Yep.
good. You get it straight from,
Yeah, we're all on the same page. He said that they just had some questions of interest just because so many people are starting to look at the carbon credit markets. So him and I talked for a little while.
oh, perfect, thank you again. Any other questions on that? Number 8, update on the Tri-County corridor.
I don't really have anything that I can update on this particular issue other than to assure the committee members that Ashland County is not involved with anything that goes on with the corridor. They're a separate entity, they're their own commission, and they interact with the state for their own grants. The county doesn't have any finger in that pot per se, like we do with the snowmobile grants. So that's all handled by them. The county is completely uninvolved with it, other than obviously we want to see it be successful because it brings people to Ashland County, both on ATVs and snowmobiles. But other than that, I don't have really anything I can update.
Yes,
At our last county board meeting, Chris Phelps was there. And one of the things she said at that, because of the investment that they had, one of the things she said that I liked and wanted to hear was that they were going to have a bonding on they have a fidelity bond on the money we have. Well, they have the fidelity bond. Insurance company. It's basically, yeah. So, and $200,000. Get locked in the door, you know, after the at least that's an improvement.
Plus, the taxes wasn't that good either. I mean, you could have been more responsible for all the finances. So minimum, when they borrow one.
yeah, they borrowed a loan for 10,000. And John, any questions?
No, thank you.
Number 9, snowmobile club issues. Have we heard from the snowmobile clubs?
No, I was gonna set up a meeting, but I actually don't know if we want a meeting set up at like this time of the day. Like, I mean, when it came the last time, it was actual regular committee meeting. I don't know if anybody can come at that time or not, but I mean, we're also to have it set up in the evening, but I don't know if that would be. But I mean, I could call these clubs and just, I guess I'll ask them when the best time is, and then I'll just get back to you, and then we'll set up a meeting, and that'll be our meeting for the committee too. At the same time. Is that the best way to proceed?
I want to go to their issues are not our issues. That club has issues. They don't get along with each other. They need to resolve that first. They control who runs that club. Kind of, you know, like who's their leader, who's their members. That's not us. So I'd be real cautious about us getting involved in their club. Now, if they have a problem with the county, but their issues every time they come here have been with people. And I don't understand how we're connected to that. I think that club or clubs need to sit together and figure out who they want to run their club. And they somehow think Forestry, this committee, runs that organization. We don't. So I think maybe it wouldn't hurt to sit with them and say, okay, how many people are involved? Are there multiple clubs, multiple people? And if it's an internal problem of that they don't get along with each other, let's be honest, they don't get along with each other. They think they can do something better than this person. And so I think they need to resolve that first, because that's not, I don't think that's Forestry.
But I can say that since their election last year and Pat Dowse was elected president of the Alliance, it seems to me like things are going much better. There seems to be much less infighting and there seems to be more work getting done. But that's just an outside perspective on my part. You know, our role in the snowmobile trail system in the county is the gatekeeper to the state for the grant monies, and that's it. You know, the county doesn't build any trail, we don't maintain any trail, we don't do any of that work. We contract with the Alliance to do all of that work. So we manage the money, the requests going in and the money coming back. What goes on inside the Alliance, we really don't have any control over. They're an independent contractor. But again, like I said, it seems to me like things are improving. There's a lot more work getting done. There's a lot more equipment getting moved around the county. There's a lot more things happening than there was in the past.
Hopefully, yeah.
But it seems like it's moving in the right direction. Is everybody happy yet? Probably not. Is everybody always going to be happy? Probably not. Like Gary said, it's, you know,
Yeah.
personalities clash and stuff like that. But it seems to me like last year's snowmobile season went a lot smoother, and that this off season, the work that's been needed to get done is being done more efficiently and more productively. So
I think Gary's right about not getting too involved in this. But we could perform the function of kind of moderating,
Getting everybody together.
everybody, moderate, come to some kind of, you know, that we could perform that.
But the way I look at it, it's called the Ashland County Snowmobile Alliance. Well, Ashland County's name is on it, so I'm sure that he's an overseer of the snowmobile clubs, right? You're the,
no, I'm not.
or you're.
I have nothing to do with any of that. The Alliance was formed, I don't know, way back in the 80s to bring all the clubs under one umbrella,
Okay,
so that there was some coordination of their effort going on. So like the Butternut Club wasn't out doing work that the Glidden Club should have been doing, or the Glidden Club wasn't repeating work that the Mellon Club had already done. It was supposed to bring all the clubs together under one roof and say, okay, you guys are gonna go do this, you guys are gonna go do that. And then coordinate all the work that needed to happen on the trails.
okay.
And then the county contracts with the Alliance to perform that function.
Yeah.
But I don't oversee any of the clubs. The clubs are their own standalone entities as well.
But they're, I mean, we hold them, we go get the money for them and everything else, so I mean.
Well, they go get the money for themselves. State law says it has to come through the county.
Okay,
So they go and the clubs do the work.
okay,
The clubs then document the work that they do. They submit all that data to the state now. It used to be a paper application, and we'd have statuses like this. The state's now put it on the computer. So the Alliance takes all the information from the clubs and says, okay, you know, the Butternut Club did X, Y, and Z work. The Glidden Club did ABC, Mellon, Ashland, and they compile all that information. Then they bring it to my office and we say, yep, this looks right, and we submit it to the state. State law says that when the state cuts a check for the snowmobile program, it has to come to the county. County takes that check and then hands it to the Alliance and says, here you go, here's your reimbursement for the work.
okay, so So let's just say if nobody did any work on the trails, why would we even go get money for them?
We wouldn't.
Well, that's what I mean.
If there
So
was
if they're
no
not
work
doing their
done,
work, if they're not doing their work, maybe we should figure something else out. I mean, if things
well, the
aren't
work's
being
getting done.
Well, I had some issues already, like you said last year, everything went pretty good, but how come Bayfield County had to come in and boom trails up in Sand Lake for us?
Because the people in Clam Lake who are not a part of the alliance decided that they were gonna reach out and get somebody to groom for them.
Okay,
And my question to the people in Clam Lake would be, if that Bayfield County groomer was in Ashland County
yeah,
and ran over a snowmobiler,
Yep.
who'd be responsible for that?
that's what I mean. I mean, see, there is nobody's watching anything. That's what gets me and.
Well, no, I wouldn't say nobody's watching anything. The alliance
Well,
is,
it's getting out of hand, I'll tell you that.
the alliance is watching what's going on. We can't stop people from doing what people are gonna do. They're not, the people in Clam Lake are not even a part of the alliance. So the alliance has no control over what they do. I mean, I can't stop an individual from going out in the county forest and cutting down a tree no more than they can stop somebody from Clam Lake calling the Bayfield County groomer operator and asking them to come and groom in Ashland County.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It's just, this whole Ashland County Snowmobile Alliance is just a big mess as far as I'm concerned.
But see, here's the problem. Just because something says Ashland County doesn't mean it's the county's responsibility. No offense, but we have an Ashland County Fair. It's not an Ashland County as Ashland County sitting up in Ashland. It's a county fair that has the name Ashland County. County has nothing to do with it, except we give them money. We give money to a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's, just because it says Ashland County doesn't mean it's us as a county board. And in Clam Lake, they bump, no offense, but they bump their trails groomed every day. They even went out and made their own trails along the highway, ordered their own groomer, and wasn't even legal at that time. But that's an alliance problem if they're part of it. Now, Chris is saying they're not. So I just, what I don't want to see happen is that we get involved in those issues that aren't county issues. The issue for a snowmobiler coming into the county, they could come and say, boy, your trails are terrible.
Yeah.
And then we could ask the alliance, how come the trails are so-called terrible? The last 5-6 years, we've had hundreds of complaints about the trails. Had nothing to do with grooming. We had no snow. I get sick and tired of listening to snowmobilers complain about trails in the county when now last winter was better. Right, but I mean, we had compliments last year, but I take the compliments like I take the criticisms because people say, well, your trails stink.
Yeah.
We had no snow for 5 years. What do you think we're gonna do with those? And then when we did get snow, it was powder. It was like sugar. So the groomer couldn't even do anything, but that's why I'm concerned when the alliance complains or people complain about the alliance. It's the alliance that needs to sit down, and I don't have a problem with us as individuals going and listening to their concerns and saying, is there something we could possibly do? But I don't want to bring those problems into the county because it's not our problem. They need to solve their problem. But I agree, if individuals go to the meeting and set a meeting up and say, hey, is there something we could talk about? But it's not a forestry problem. We're just a conduit, like Chris says. They apply for the money, the state sends it to the county hands it off. That's kind of the extent of our business.
Right.
But like I say, maybe one of these winters will be lots of snow, everybody will be happy, but the biggest concern is everybody wants a trail groomed every day. I mean, if John goes out in snowmobiles and ruts it up and then I come along, I blame somebody for that.
But what I'm saying is that us as committee, when things are bad on the trails and everything else, people aren't doing their jobs or whatever, this is a black eye for us. It's also a black eye for the whole county board, all 21 members. That isn't right either. We should have some kind of teeth so that doesn't reflect that bad on us. Either they should be doing their job or else they have some consequences to go by. I don't know how you put that in effect, but you should have something.
Somebody out there in the public's misconstrued something because this board or the full county board has no no connection to grooming a trail.
They should take Ashland County snowmobile lines out of the picture, then they shouldn't have Ashland County in it.
But see, anybody could choose Ashland County. I could say Ashland County Murdoch property or something. It's the wrong, there's a
You
miscon.
know, they should take the United.
What we should do is ask the Daily Press to write an article and say Ashland County has this responsibility for trails. We're the conduit for the money. That when it says Ashland County, it's not the board.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
what I
understand
mean.
what you're saying. People call.
Everybody looks at the board, Ashland County board, look at Dan doing their job. And look at the Forestry committee, Dan doing their job, snowmobile trails are.
I have an answer to that. If they don't think we as board members are doing our job, elect someone in our place.
Yes, well, that's true. But I mean, they like to complain, so.
I agree, and I'll listen to all those, but I have said for 50 years, it's the chair that they dislike. If you're sitting in that chair today and they take you out and somebody else comes in,
Yes.
it's not them, it's that chair.
Yeah, yes.
But I'm willing to listen, but I think Chris is right. I think we have limited responsibility for that alliance. It's conduit of money, and I think we need to tell people that.
Yeah.
They need to join the alliance and get involved.
This sounds like a good job for Rick.
Like I said, take the name,
My question is,
County out of it.
why can't the two people that are involved with the two committees get together and work a little things out? Instead of nothing getting done, no one's in charge that I know to get anything to go anywhere. So I don't understand why, who's the president and whoever is responsible for taking care of the trails can't get together, like we say, if we're not involved with it. Why can't they work things out a little bit closer than it is now? They have no communication with each other.
Well,
They talk to each other.
Pat Dose is the president of the Snowmobile Alliance.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that.
And last winter, every time there was an issue that came to my desk, I would call or email Pat, and within 24 hours, it was rectified. So the way it's supposed to work is Pat, as the president, gets a phone call from me and says, there's a stop sign missing on trail 9 at such and such road.
Okay.
And Pat says, well, that's in the Glidden Snowmobile Club's area. He calls the Glidden Club and says, hey, you guys need to go out and put a stop sign up on trail 9 at such and such road. And somebody from the Glidden Club then goes out and puts that sign up. That's how it's supposed to work. That's the whole idea behind this alliance. And that's the way it worked all last winter. I had 0 issues where I would call Pat and say, hey, you need to get the stop sign up on trail 9. And then 2 weeks later, Bruce Jonas was back in my office and said, that stop sign's still not up. It was all fixed within 2 days. Any issues and any priority safety issues like stop signs or whatever, they were dealt with immediately. There were 0 issues last winter as far as my office was concerned with snowmobile trails. And I've been doing it for 17 years. They had 0 issues from my office with snowmobiles, the trail system in Ashland.
So everybody's happy then.
Well, that's what not everybody's gonna be happy. That's never gonna happen. I mean, we've got a room of 10 people here and there's probably somebody in this room that's not happy. But what I can say is the issues that were generated last year during snowmobile season were dealt with immediately. I think Pat Dowse, being the president of the alliance, has shifted the way the alliance is going to work. And over time, I think it's going to improve. Again, is everybody happy? Nope. Is everybody always going to be happy? Nope. Are there going to be issues? There's always going to be issues. You've got multiple people from different aspects of the county, different locations in the county, from different backgrounds. Everybody's got a different idea. There are people in snowmobile clubs in this county that think the groomers should go out every day. We have $60,000 to run over 200 miles of snowmobile trail year-round in Ashland County. So if the groomers went out every single day that there was snow in the wintertime, they could go out for about 2 weeks. And that $60,000 would be gone, and then it's done. So that's where the alliance is supposed to balance all of these questions, problems, concerns, and then delegate the workload. And I think with Pat being the president, we're going to see improvement in that. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. But we had much fewer issues last year than we've had in years past.
I agree with there was a lot bigger last year, but the year before was horrible. Last year, yes, I did see, I'm getting a lot more better inputs from the town of Glidden, that things are doing better.
And I think it's gonna continue that way. It's just a matter of, we have to be patient, and we need to get a normal winter where we get snow before Christmas, so we can go out and groom, we can capitalize on that big week between Christmas and New Year's. That's always been traditionally been our big week. We didn't get snow last year until dang near February. You know, and like Gary said, I can't make it snow, Pat Dowse can't make it snow, Bill Chandler can't make it snow. We have to work with what we're given, and we do the best with what we can. Between Pat, Bill, and myself, there's probably close to 100 years of trail management experience at the table. We do the best that we can. And I think with Pat's a much more diplomatic person running the Alliance now. He's put the onus back on the clubs where the work is supposed to be. And now it's gonna fall back to the clubs to get the work done. And as the clubs become more accommodating to that, I think a lot of these issues are simply gonna go away.
Is there 4 clubs? How many clubs are there?
There's 4 clubs in the Alliance: Butternut, Glidden, Mellon, and Ashland.
Wonder would it help once in a while if we could invite Pat to one of these meetings?
Sure.
Yes.
So typically during the summer, the Alliance doesn't meet. They start meeting again in October to do their work planning for November and December. Because the majority of our snowmobile trails lie on private property, we have to work around the desires of those private property owners. So a lot of our work doesn't really happen until after deer season. So the month of December is crazy, but the Alliance is meeting on a regular basis at that time. So it would probably make sense, say in November, to invite Pat to a meeting. And if he can attend and kind of give an update on what their season plans are, if there's any identified major issues. Last year, the Forest Service had a big piece of trail up on Mount Baldy that when they rebuilt it poorly, couldn't get a groomer through it without risking the life of the groomer operator. So we had to shut that piece of trail down. Forest Service is supposed to be rectifying that this summer. Those kind of things Pat would be able to identify in November, that we're gonna have issues in the town of Shannon, we're gonna have an issue in the town of Marengo. Things that they already know about, and he can kind of give us an update of what they're planning on.
Maybe we should have a meeting, or try to have a meeting with the snowmobile clubs and stuff then. Would that'd probably be more,
We could do that.
okay.
I think it would be helpful for the 4 snowmobile clubs to have a representative here, to hear just what Chris said, that Pat
Yeah, that's
is
what I mean, yeah.
delivering the thing to the top of the snowmobile clubs.
This is just my opinion.
Yeah.
And you guys look at things differently than I do. I would invite Pat to come to the meeting in November, maybe not invite the clubs per se to come, because the Alliance is the clubs. And Pat, it was elected by the clubs to represent the Alliance. And if there's a miscommunication or a problem or something, that's up to Pat and the Alliance to solve. I think it would be, just my opinion, be more productive for us to interact with Pat and then let Pat take concerns and issues and problems back to the clubs and say, we need to address X, Y, and Z. And how are we going to do that as an Alliance?
I think if we had.
That's just my opinion.
If we have Pat here, would take the pressure off everybody. Right now, nobody knows what's going on. Pat was here to explain things that would solve everything for us.
And then we would have all the issues for the small clubs. I mean, how would they come about then if they are not represented?
Well, all the clubs have representation on the Alliance. Okay. So they all have a seat at the table at the Alliance meetings that they'll start having again in October. Okay. And they talk about all the same kind of things that we're talking about now,
Okay,
but more specific. So Pat will say, trail 300 down in Glidden needs to be brushed before we open the gates in December. So how are we gonna get that done? When do you guys wanna do that? Then we'll schedule getting the mower and the Bobcat delivered over there so that you guys can get that work done. Or we're gonna have to put a hand crew on this trail. We got a bunch of blow down balsam that we're gonna have to cut by hand. How are we gonna do that? And so they sit down and they come up with a work schedule at the Alliance level, and that involves all of the clubs.
okay.
And then the clubs go back to their club meetings and they say, okay, the Alliance has told us that we have to do whatever project on whatever piece of trail, let's go get that done. And then the club schedules within their little world of when they're gonna go out and do that work. Then they go back to next month's Alliance meeting and say, okay, we got trail, whatever is open and ready to go. So they coordinate, you know, they coordinate the work down, the work gets done, and then it comes back up. Okay, we can check those boxes off. These trails are all good to go for the winter. And now let's just wait for snow.
And the equipment is more available now than it was
Absolutely.
before? And before you couldn't use equipment because of one person?
It's all been made available now.
Okay,
And I know that for a fact.
okay, that's my
I
main
like
thing.
that idea because, you know, if you get a lot of snow and you guys are out there 24/7 and you use all your time up, well, then you need to keep somebody in there to fill in the little hot spots, you know, so.
Yep.
What a wonderful idea. That's great. I thought you knew that idea.
I think personally, right, too, about being able to have.
Yeah, I think so too. So you'll set that up then?
I will set that up for November. We'll plan in November. If it doesn't work for Pat, we'll do it in December, but we'll get him here at the beginning of snowmobile season.
Okay, that'd be good.
If that makes you guys comfortable.
Yeah, I won't worry about this meeting then. I won't set one up then for the.
Okay,
I just think it'd be more productive if we work with the Alliance versus trying to solve every club member's issues.
Yes.
Because quite frankly, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but some of the club members' issues are not realistic. They can't be managed by me or Pat or you or anybody. They're just unrealistic desires or problems or concerns but if we work at it from the structure that has been put in place and try to make that work, which like I said, I really do think it's gonna get better with Pat running it now. That we're gonna see it's gonna become much smoother, and I think you guys will get much less complaining at your local levels of Pat's not listening.
Okay.
You might get some complaints where Pat's asking me to do too much work.
Well, that'd be good.
That might come about, but once that work gets done and gets caught up, it becomes less work to maintain.
Okay. that
Because,
sounds
you
good.
know, you gotta feel our side, because when I go to a town meeting, you know, I get whammed on that, you know, so I have to come here to express my feelings for the situation, for the town's feelings. So, you know, we're cutting off, I'm in a hard rock. When that-
Well, you know, if you get ganged up on at a town meeting, call me the next day and let me know. And we'll figure out what's going on. If it's something that I can intercede on and help you address, we'll do that. But like a lot of it's out of my control, so I would be able to tell you that too. John, I can't help
I
you.
realize a lot of it is stupid stuff too, people are, a lot of it is, yeah. But I do like to get this on a roll like we're talking about.
And I think if we get a normal winter where we start to see snow towards the end of your season and we've got a foot of snow by Christmas, you're not gonna hear any complaining from anybody. The problem comes in when they wanna go riding and there's no snow. They get angry and they have to vent at somebody, and it happens to be you or me or Pat, you know.
Nobody should oppose Mother Nature.
Right, but they do.
Yes, sir.
I know you spend $12,000 on a snowmobile that maybe you only get to ride for 2 weeks this winter. You know, it makes people upset.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But it's never anybody's intent that's involved with the snowmobile trail system, from Pat Douse down to the lowliest club member. It's never anybody's intention to screw with the trail systems in Ashley County. Everybody's working towards the same end. This is that everybody has their own little idea on how we should get there.
Yeah.
And that's Pat's job now, to corral all those little ideas together and make the trail system work.
okay, good discussion. Next, we'll go to one thing I was gonna say, when they're working on trails, if they know the guys are bow hunting and they're up in their bow stands, and then we find out the snowmobile line, or they're working on trails, the hunters aren't really happy. So if they could,
We
if they're gonna work
typically,
on a road, a certain part of it, and then, call somebody in that area and say they're gonna be working this week.
we try not to work on private property during hunting season. For that reason, we don't want to lose the access that the private landowners have given us. So we try to avoid doing that kind of thing. We'll do work on public land, and that might
Right.
screw up a public land hunter, but that's their risk when they come hunt on public land. So we try to get all the public land done stuff, say in September and October, and then wait until after gun season to start working on the private property that we know we can work on.
Okay.
Some of the private property, we physically can't do our trail maintenance work on until the trail's open. And we will, you know, if we know that there's somebody that they're bow hunting until January, you know, the first weekend in January, when bow season start or closes, we won't do any trail work on that piece of trail until that time. You know, so on top of everything else, the alliance is juggling those kind of needs as well, you know. There might be, you know, 40 acres of Kathy Schuete's property that got all blown shut last year because of a big wet, heavy snow event. We need to go in there and cut brush. But because Kathy's bow hunting until the first weekend in January, we can't do that work until after she's done bow hunting. Or she's gonna say, you know what, take your snowmobile trail and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so many levels of complexity to what the alliance does that you know, we definitely try to avoid those
Yeah,
situations.
Pat, tell Pat to remind the clubs that,
You know,
try to limit it.
All the more reason to develop goodwill.
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
One last question is, we keeping, most of the private, land people that have trails going through there, are they pretty well satisfied?
I would say the vast majority of them are. We typically run into one or two issues a season that somebody doesn't like where we put a sign maybe, or where the trail is, you know, maybe the groomer swung too wide on a corner or something. But the vast majority of them don't have an issue with the snowmobiles being there. We try to work with them however we can.
So we're keeping most of them, trying to keep them happy.
Absolutely, that's the primary goal, because like I said, the majority of our 200+ miles of snowmobile trail falls on private property. And if we start to lose those pieces, now we're putting snowmobile trails on road, and that's not something that nobody ever wants to do. So the first priority is keeping the landowners happy, and then the trail maintenance and the grooming and everything comes after that.
Chris, can you, so Pat is the president, who's the vice president?
Bill Chandler's the vice president.
And then
Kathy is the secretary treasurer.
Kathy,
Chandler.
she's the treasurer. Anybody else?
Those are the officers that
Okay, that's it.
The officers.
Okay.
and he lives up in Bayfield, Washington. But he's very responsive to any snowmobile trail issues, even in July. I mean, there was some stuff that him and I talked about a month ago. So I mean, he's very responsive to trying to address issues as soon as they come up.
Those three officers you referred to, are all three of those elected?
Correct, they're elected by the members of the alliance.
I like the way the discussion went here today. It updates us, it tells us. This has a lot of information for doing this for 17 years. That helps us.
Like I said, I think we're all gonna be happy with the results going forward. It's just gonna take a little bit of time to smooth some of those major hiccups out, you know, and some of those are personality issues that will never get smoothed out. They'll always be there, but we just have to do the best we can with them.
Thank you, Chris. Number 10, the forestry administrators update.
Don't have a whole lot additional than what we've talked about. We've actually had a pretty good summer for logging. Timber revenue right now is at $457,390. That's about twice what I would have expected it to be this time of year based on what the timber markets were doing last year. Things have kind of slowed down now. We still have some logging going on the county forest. I would expect as we go into fall, it's going to kind of hold steady where it's at now. So I would think it's reasonable at this point to assume we're going to make our revenue estimate for this year, which is another $100,000 roughly. Like I said, things are going better than I expected. The big change is going to come when we open and award timber sales in December. We're not going to see $45 and $50 a cord for hardwood stumpage anymore. We're going to see $22 and $23 a cord. It is what it is. I mean, that's the way we work in my career. I've seen as low as $6 a cord stumpage. So I'm still doing pretty
And
good.
lumber's high, lumber's still high, you can't afford to buy 2x4.
Right. So timber wise, things are going very good, but wow, relatively good based on the conditions we're in. Jerome has been working with some of the townships in spraying right-of-ways. We've had issues of town road right away is growing closed to the point where the towns can't do road maintenance anymore. So when we set up timber sales along those road right of ways, we cut the right of ways open. Literally clear cut the right of way so that there's no trees left growing in the right of way. The problem is a lot of towns don't have the ability, and if they do have the ability, they don't have the time with everything else that they have to do to maintain that right of way in such a condition that they can then maintain the road to the ditch line. So we've come up with a system of providing the sprayer and the guy to run the sprayer if the towns buy the herbicide. And then we're herbiciding those right of ways to make sure that they stay open. So then the towns can maintain those roads and we can get pulp trucks up and down in a reasonable fashion and not destroy the town roads in the process of doing that. Because the roads aren't opened up, they don't dry out, and we end up pounding the hell out of them. And then the towns aren't happy, but because the right of way is growing shut, they can't go and fix the road. So it's kind of a nasty cycle that we were caught in. We've been working on that this summer. And that should, because when we spray the road, that right of way will stay open for 15 to 20 years now before it goes back. So then we'll have more opportunity to maintain that going forward. So we've been doing a lot of that kind of work the last month or so. The other thing, we submitted our preliminary budget. Finance met yesterday. We changed nothing on our budget other than the 2% pay raise that we were directed to add. All the other numbers on the budget stayed the same as last year. It took me literally a half an hour to do my budget and get it sent back up to the courthouse. There was a question raised at the finance committee meeting yesterday, and I was asked to gauge the feeling of the forestry committee. For some reason, for as long as I've been here, there has been a line item in the forestry department's budget for the Chamber of Commerce. And Mary submits vouchers typically towards the end of the year for draws on that line item. And there was some discussion at the finance committee meeting about possibly eliminating or reducing that line item in our budget. I was asked to gauge the committee's feelings on possibly having that take place. Mary uses the money for GEM grants and for marketing, like the snowmobile trails, the murals, the waterfalls. It seems like the majority of the money that she takes out of that line item goes towards marketing. I've also been asked to get Mary to supply like a summary of what she's spent that money on in the last 2 or 3 years, so the finance committee can look at that in September when we again the budget's a second. I guess I'm asking for any feedback from the committee members on that line item and what it's used for. And if you have any specific feelings or concerns or anything like that that I can provide back to finance and budget.
I would support Mary's $35,000 grant that she gets. She does, like you say, gem grants, and they do tourism is huge. And that's what she uses it for, the snowmobile trails and the maps, and they do all this other stuff. And for, yes, I support Mary McFetrich and leave that money in the budget for her.
Let's go back to one question is, like, when you proceeded us the timber sales for the year and stuff, and a lot of them, not a lot, but there was a few timber sales that weren't hit out yet.
Correct.
So what happens to that? Do you just keep on, you keep that book open until somebody bids that, or you go to the next contract again?
No, so if we put a timber sale out for bid and nobody bids on it, state law says we have to bid that twice and go no bid twice, and then we can sell it directly to somebody if we want to. Typically, we'll just continue to advertise it until it sells, unless it's something that we feel we need to get done. The time is of the essence for some reason. We do have a backlog or a prologue of timber that we have set up and ready to sell that we've been kind of slow playing, hoping the markets will recover a little bit before we put it up for sale. We just talked earlier this week about probably we're going to just let most of those sales out in the fall and let the chips come where they may. The loggers need wood to cut. We need to keep a backlog or surplus of sales that are sold going forward, so we've always got that cushion. So if for some reason there comes a year that we can't sell some timber, for some reason we still have a cushion of timber that's already sold. So we want to maintain that surplus, and we also want to maintain what we're trying to accomplish on the landscape. So some of these timber sales that we do, the cutting prescription for that is time sensitive. We don't want to lose the baby trees that we've already got growing, so we need to get some more sunlight in, and we want to get that done. Regardless of the dollar amount that it might generate for the county, we need to get this done, because then in 50 or 60 years, we're going to be losing. So all of those kind of things come into play on the sales that we have set up, but haven't offered for sale yet. And I think this fall, we're probably going to offer a larger number of sales than we did this spring or last fall. Hopefully, I'm very hopeful that the timber market's going to recover. I cannot believe that somebody is not going to purchase that mill in Wisconsin Rapids and reopen it. There's just too much wood available in northern Wisconsin to not reopen that mill. It's just a matter of when. And in the meantime, we still have to maintain the forest. That's our charge, is to maintain the forest and grow young trees. So we're going to probably offer for sale a few more sales this fall than we maybe would like to, based on the timber markets, and they may not sell. Guys might be, you know what, we can't take on that volume of hardwood right now, just because we can't get rid of it once we cut it. So we may get some of those sales that come back. But if we have a sale that we put out that does not sell, we'll bid it at least twice, and probably more times than that until it does sell.
With regard to Mary's, I think what the guy was, and I think what the committee's concern was, is it was kind of struck the committee as an odd thing to have. And they were curious what that was.
Absolutely.
And they're looking at some history on it.
I'm sure Mary can provide that information too.
Yeah, and I would
Because, like-
imagine she would be able to, like I told the committee yesterday, it was an easy question for me to answer. It's always been like that. It's been like that since I got here. It used to be $43,500. And a couple of years ago, we nicked her a little bit and dropped it back to the 35 that it's at now. But I don't know why that falls within forestry departments.
Could it be that the Snowmobile Alliance belonged to the Ashland County Snowmobile Alliance, so it got
Well, I
put in
think-
your budget?
I think originally there are some counties out there that the forestry committee is known as the Forestry Recreation and Tourism Committee.
Yes, that's
So I'm
right.
thinking maybe at one point in time, this was the tourism committee as well. And somebody came up with the idea of, hey, we should, and it used to be a joint chamber between Ashland and Bayfield counties. And I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and they kind of went their separate ways. So I think maybe that somebody came up with the idea that we should have this joint chamber that can
Yes.
market for both of the counties and try to bring some tourism dollars to the north. Because it was originally part of the forestry department's purview, that money just sat in the budget. And so that money's always just sat there with a line item tying it to tourism into the chamber. And then so when Mary comes up with marketing efforts, she dips into that $35,000 to help pay for it. That would be my guess as to how it came about to be where it is, but it happened well before my 17 years ago.
Yeah, this is Clark. I have basically Pat Kenny basically has given me some information, and we can put this on an agenda for your next meeting. You know, but they get like $280,000 from the room tax to do tourism, and he feels that the $35,000 is general funds. The reason you're actually aware of it now is because I moved it. We changed how the budget is organized to change it to departments and then a section of non-mandated contributions. And so we moved this up to the non-mandated contributions because it's general levy tax dollars. And we want to make sure we call those out for the board to say, these are things that the state doesn't make you do. And pretty much everything else the state makes you do. So that's why it's maybe coming up to the issue. Finance committee will be discussing this issue on the 21st of September at their next meeting. They will be looking at the bills that are paid that Chris will provide, and also getting more background information concerning what do they do with the room tax, because that room tax comes, you know, $10 every time somebody stays here is supposed to go towards tourism. And the question is it geared towards the county or is it geared towards just the city? And so those are kind of the couple questions which kind of come to light that you'll be discussing on September 21st.
Chris,
Yes, ma'am.
the grants that Mary gets, the gem grants, Mellon gets one for they're doing their 3 events a year that they do, so yeah, that gets spread out. That's not a city thing, that's a county-wide thing.
Yeah, I know I've signed vouchers for gem grants for every
Yes.
community from Butternut to Ashland.
Yes.
Over the course of time that I've been here. And they vary from year to year. Some years there's more than others, but they're spread out all over. It depends on who applies for them, I guess, through her office,
Right.
what she puts together. And like I said, I was asked just to gauge your feelings, and then I have to talk with Mary to get information on where she specifically spent the county money for the last couple of years, so the finance committee has an idea of where it's going.
Any, John?
I got one off the wall question, but it is, this Ashland County Forest is giving it, or we bought it from the Forest Service. Correct?
No, that's not correct. Late 1920s, early 1930s, all of the land here in northern Wisconsin had been cut over by the timber companies. And the timber companies had taken the timber off the land and then said, we don't want it anymore. So they stopped paying taxes on it. So the counties ended up taking that property on tax deed. And then the county said to the state, hey, what are we gonna do with all this land? I mean, there's counties out there that have hundreds of thousands of acres in county forest programs today. The state at that time said, well, we'll create this county forest program. The counties can keep that land to grow timber on and then supply jobs and forest products into the local economy. So in 1933, the Ashland County Forest was created with the idea of this land will be for the public good, for the citizens of Ashland County and the citizens of the state. And so the state set up this county forest program that allowed the county forests to exist. Ashland County is 40,200 acres, and we're like number 16 or 17 out of 30 in the state size wise. So there are county forests out there that have 250,000 acres in size, and some of them are as small as 3,000 acres.
How much does Bayfield have? I thought Bayfield has like 150, 175 or something.
I want to say 175 or 180.
Okay, thank you.
And Iron County's at 120,000 acres. Price County's at 95,000 acres.
We're
So-
at what do we have?
Just over 40, like just shy of 40,200 acres.
I just wondering, since we do such a good job of managing, I'm surprised why we can't access more.
Here's the problem with this, and this will come up every time. There's a 40-acre parcel somewhere. Now, recently, we had a rule that it had to be connected to the current property, although we tried to do it outside.
Correct.
But say I own a 40 and a county wants to take it and put it part of the county forest. You have to weigh, what are you gonna get from stumpage, cutting it how many years?
So it depends on the timber, but.
Right. Versus the tax you would get from a private landowner. And that's been the argument for years, how to convince the public that we need more land to produce more revenue for the county versus the taxes you would take off of a private landowner. So that's always been one of the problems. The other problem was the first point where we saw 40s or 80s or more than that outside the current boundaries that we were interested in. But then it's always a concern of, wasn't the rule, it wasn't a rule, but it was like a suggestion that you had to stay within the boundary.
So when we put together our planning for the county forest, we have to designate blocking boundaries. And so we lay out an imaginary line on a map that says this is where the county's going to focus their efforts to have a county forest. The state encourages us to buy more property if we can. If the elected officials have the stomach to buy more property and take it off the tax rolls, the state encourages that, and the state will actually help us do that. And they have a grant program that'll pay for 50% of what we'd like to purchase. We've had the opportunity to look at some properties that were outside the blocking boundaries, which is totally acceptable to do, because then we would just create a new block. So say we bought 10,000 acres west of Highway 13, we would just make a new block. It would take some resolutions and a couple of meetings to get that done, but we could do that. But it comes down to, and I don't mean any offense to any elected official, because I'm an elected official in the city of Park Falls. It comes down to the stomach for the elected officials to tell their constituents that we just took this property off the tax roll. And typically, we can prove on paper that we'll make more money revenue-wise selling timber over time than we'll make by paying taxes on it. However, when the county sells timber, the school district doesn't get reimbursed for that. And that's always where the big rub comes in. People don't want to take property off the tax roll and take money away from the school district, even though the school district has much more flexible taxing rules than the county does. But we can make money by having more land in that. If you guys are all on board with that, and convince your other county board members of it, I can put stuff on this table in 20 minutes on property that we would like to go and purchase or make offers on. But it typically comes down to when it goes to Ashland and it comes before all 21 elected officials, there's not enough stomach in the room to want to do that.
And part of that problem is that the county as a whole has federal land, state land, and county land. So the more you put into any of those sectors, the less you're gonna have to play with your budget. But Chris is right. There have been opportunities in the past where we looked at some serious property things, especially like a tax deed property that comes back. You know, that's the easiest way to take it, but you gotta convince 21 people on the board that's been taken off the tax.
And since I've been here, we have purchased several pieces of property. Not big pieces of property, but we've added. And every time, especially if we're working within the blocking boundary, like Gary mentioned, if I can buy a piece of property within the blocking boundary and put that into the county forest, that's less work that we have to do, because if there's private property in the county forest, we have to maintain that boundary. But everybody knows where their 40 acres is and where the county's is. So if I eliminate that workload, that's more time we can spend doing other things, plus manage the timber and provide more opportunity for recreation. There's lots of positives putting more property into the county forest program, but there are some negatives that have a tendency to tip the scale away from purchasing the property.
I think Chris was talking before about a possible deal with the state. They go property tax. I think a deal like that would probably be fairly easy to do through the county. How would have to work out.
Right.
Good discussion again. All right, number 11, any other business? Anybody got anything? I have one thing. Oh, Marty, you go first.
I'm just gonna ask Chris if we've had any of the help yourself. Wait to hold.
It's been very quiet in the Ashland County Forest. There is still demand for white birch poles. I see ads in the shopper almost every week of people looking to buy the birch poles. Between our presence in the county forest and Bruce's presence in the county forest, it seems like we've kind of sent the message that not the sandbox you want to play in, go find somewhere else to steal your wood from. So we've been fortunate, knock on wood. But this fall, when the leaves come down again, we'll be out patrolling, looking for it. Hopefully it'll continue the way it has the last couple of years.
What about like when you're going in and you do your clear cutting and stuff like that? I realize that the Forest Service don't want you in the woods no matter what they do too. They're logging, they don't want you in there. But sometimes there's extra money to be made. Like you could put out a permit or they're gonna go through and clear cut. These poles, birch poles are such a big demand that there's some extra money that could be made maybe, but yet you got more hassle than you got to hire more people,
If we had a sale that was, the biggest problem we have is we don't have a lot of birch on the county forest. Most of the birch that we have grows alongside the roads, you know, within the first 50 or 60 feet off the road. And it's a tree that we're trying to grow into a more viable product going forward. If we had a timber sale, specifically a clear cut, where they were taking everything and somebody wanted to go in and take twigs or whatever out of those tops, we could work with something like that, but we just don't have. So if we have an aspen clear cut, there might be 4 birch trees on 80 acres. You know, it's just not, the volume's not there to be able to make it. It's a convenience thing for these people that, you know, they see 4 or 5 birch trees growing along roads, and they disappear with them. Yeah. You know, we just don't have the volume like some other places have the volume of birch. So it's less of an issue. We'd like to keep the birch. That's why it's an issue. We don't want to lose the birch from the landscape. We'd like to keep the birch in the forest, so that there's always a representation there. So somebody can go out someday and say, I want to see a white birch tree. Well, there's a white birch tree. But other places have bigger volumes of white birch growing on their property, and it's obviously a much bigger deal for them.
Okay, and Chris, we just had someone arrive here at the meeting.
Hi there,
Oh, boy.
Mary McFetrich.
the troublemaker,
I was gonna be looking for your phone number later.
troublemaker. I'm sorry, I had a ribbon cutting.
Oh,
I have one more question.
okay,
I heard a story a while ago about there are people who want to lease like 40-acre tracts for a long period of time for maple syrup. Is there anything, have you heard anything about?
I have not heard anything in this area. Nobody has ever approached our office to talk about sap production. We'd have to have long conversations about it. Obviously our goal is to grow high quality saw logs ultimately, because that's where the money is and there's always demand for that. And as soon as you put a spile on a tree, you know, you've wrecked it for saw log quality. Then that doesn't mean there's not stands out there where it couldn't happen, but it would take a lot of work on our part to identify, and there's just not the demand locally right here, right now.
Well, what he was saying was that to manage the trees, kind of in the reverse of what you guys do, is to leave the big
Yep.
ground stuff.
Yep.
Pick off the logs that make those fire cut.
And like I said, it's just, fortunately, there's not a lot of demand locally, so we don't have to deal with that issue.
okay, Mary, did you wanna?
Well, is it okay? Can I talk?
Anybody gets that.
Yes, Mary, you may speak, 'cause we're on number
I have no
12 of 14.
We already talked about you. but
Well, my ears are ringing as I'm doing the ribbon cutting. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Well, I'm so sorry, actually, that, you know, I understand that there was some bad words yesterday in the meeting and I just, I just wanted to make sure that you all knew kind of where we are at and how we promote tourism. Our, and I say our, meaning Joanne, Mary Beth, and actually Mary Beth is retired, but we are not letting her retire. We're having trouble staffing as much as everything, so we're trying to handle that. Anyway, I just wanted to come here and talk about, you know, what it is that we do for Ashland County, because I haven't done a very good job of communicating that, it sounds like. So first of all, I don't use the word never, and I don't use the word promise. I'm going to say today that I promise that we will try and make sure that we're getting out there to the meetings, to the board supervisors, so let them know how we're promoting the county. Because it's really a joint effort between the chamber and the county. It used to be 2 counties. If you remember back in the day, it was Ashland and Bayfield County, and you put money in together. And then when they pulled out, we're kind of have taken that, the chamber has kind of taken that role so that we can do more together. So whether it be television, video, we have 2 really great videos with waterfalls, and then we have one with, you know, the 4 seasons, so all the way from Madeline Island down to Butternut. And that's the other part of it, that when we're promoting the county, obviously Madeline Island, Ashland, and the southern communities, we do it all together. Yesterday I was here, actually, I think he thought he saw a ghost. Because on the way to this meeting, I was having a tourism meeting with Karen Thorpe, Carol Peterson, Bill Wayland, not Bill,
John.
John. Bill, wait, John. And Maxine, and we, I got a text that said, oh boy, somebody doesn't like you. And I said, okay, who? What? You know, and so, it was an employee that must have been on the Zoom meeting or something, so. Anyway, so then I was there early, so I walked in, he's got his earphones on, and he's like, oh my gosh.
They're just talking about you.
They're just talking about you, and I go, it's like here, and he said, I was like, what can I say, what can I do, and he's like, well, I have to hang on here and talk a little bit, and then he had me on his voice. So, I just decided, I'm coming here, I wanna just show you something, because I don't want.
We should give you some information too.
Okay,
The finance committee which met yesterday, and Marty's on it, but the problem comes in trying to inform the county board members as a whole and the finance committee of where the money comes from, where is it going? And the biggest question probably was, why is the forestry involved in the $35,000 or whatever the number is? So that's the first thing, and we talked about it before you got here to try and identify, how did that ever start with the forestry? And Clark is correct in saying maybe it should be somewhere else in the budget. Maybe not, but, you know, we need to know every item in the budget, where's it coming from, where's it going, and how did it ever get to where it is?
let me show you something.
Okay,
I printed out, let me show you this. So this, would be, this is kind of how the tourism budget breaks down. But it was 48 or 45, and then it got cut, and then it got cut again, and we had, when I started here 22 years ago. I'm sorry, Sarah, I don't have another one. See that? I gotta tell you a story. Do you guys remember Bud Holt?
Yes.
Okay, remember
Oh, yeah,
Bud?
yeah,
So
right.
we met up at Butternut, there used to be I think a laundromat, you know, in that Butternut, we were in the Forestry and Rec meeting there. And I started in 1998, so I was 39, I was pretty green, I was as green as a line. And there was this hubbub, like I was a city girl that came in and I was gonna misappropriate funds. Tom Keatley was the administrator and Gary Lapine was the county board chair, but anyway, even Bill Chandler, he was like, because he didn't know me, you know, he was upset. Everybody was like, who is this person? They're gonna take money from us. So I went to this meeting up there, and I think it was Peg Carilla, Bud Holt, Helen Crotto, Carl Kubel might hit on it, and I feel like there might have been another couple of supervisors. Yeah, and so Bud, he started yelling at me. He's like, Russ Corporal did this. Well, I don't remember Russ Corporal. He was there. Let me do, and he did this, and he did that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're dying, you gotta do something. So I stood up and I go, look at me. And he went, what? And I go, I turned around really slow, I go, look at me. Do I look like Russ Corporal? And he goes, no. I said, well, I'm not Russ Corporal. And I had Joanna and Mary back there, and I'm like, you know, please let us show you what we can do. So we just want to promote tourism. And that's what we're here to do. And Peg looked at him and said, I think she just told you off. And he goes, I think she did too. Oh, we were best friends then. I mean, we never, ever, you know, gotten anything. He would get mad about ATV because he get all red in the face about that, but he never got anything. But anyway, so that was in 1998, a long time ago. So our budget at the time, you'll see the administration, it used to be 21.9. So it was 21.9 in 1998, and it was 21.9 forever. I never asked for any more. And I remember some of the mayors saying, we should ask for more money, but you know what? We didn't need it. I felt like we don't need it, let's not ask for it. So we never have asked for any increase in 20 years because we've just done it with what we have.
What is a GEM grant?
So a joint effort marketing. So a GEM grant is joint effort marketing. And that is something that the state of Wisconsin has a grant program. So they let tourism destination marketing organizations write these grants where if you have, for example, we've written a lot of them over the years. Follow the mural brick road. That was one of them. I'll show you the thing. So, for example, if you have to get like 6 communities together, or I'm sorry, more than 3 communities together.
Right.
And then you do a promotion in shoulder season. So this one was a fall promotion, and we did this probably 7 years ago, maybe 8. And then like we have all the historic murals in National County. So Karen Thorpe said yesterday that now Lydia's getting another mural, so that's cool. They're gonna have Troy evoke that. So that's joint effort marketing. We try and do that as much as possible because it gives us extra marketing arms and it gives us that extra marketing power. We were going to do a museum one, and I wrote a grant for it and didn't get it, thank goodness, because then COVID hit and we weren't able to do it anyway. Because we all have museums from Madeline Island all the way to Butternut, so we were going to do this museum weekend kind of thing. We've done birding, 2-county birding, 2-county fishing. This is a lot of junkrats we did when we were with Ashland County. But these are some things we still do. We do a bicycle map, it's 2-county wide, and we're doing that right now. We're reprinting this right now, so we're selling some ads on this. A lot of times we don't sell ads, but this one we do pay, covers pay for that. The biggest piece that costs the most money that we've done in a long time. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
This is a nice piece. So we have one for Shawamigan Bay as well, and it's almost waterproof. It's a little wet, but it's very well done, and it was very expensive. So this is something that the county wouldn't have been able to afford on their own. So we pitched in a lot of money, the chamber did, to do it, so we could get this piece. So that's when I talk about, like, you know, I can be more specific with dollars and cents, you know, and show you if that's what you want.
One of the things that would be helpful, and I know that it's in someone's own view, but if the county board had some semblance of, okay, the county gives you $35,000 a year here. What's the return on the investment?
Oh, sure.
Because the tax dollars that we collect off of tourism is a huge draw. I mean, that's what we want tourism for. So if you could let the county board know that, hey, no matter where this money comes from, if it comes out of forestry, if it comes out of the general budget, which is basically it, probably, or what the amount is, that the county board members could say, hey, we're spending X amount of dollars, but we're getting this for the bang for a buck, because
And now they're doing, if you flip it over, I wrote some things on there, and the first one is called the Arrival List. And it's a data research group. It's expensive. It's $5,000 to do it per county. So I talked to Baby with doing a portion of it, and I put, you have to have 3 entry points. So we put Madeline Island, the murals, and I think Copper Falls was the 3rd one. It's Copper Falls. And what it does is it tracks, it's really creepy, but it tracks people that have gone to the Wisconsin Department of Tourism website, which we're all over that. It's called Extranet, and so we are the county. We put all the businesses and tourism and all that good stuff on the state website. So for example, if somebody comes from out of town, let's say somebody comes from Minneapolis and they go to Madeline Island, it tracks that. And then it can tell us where they're coming from, and then kind of the return on investment. So it was kind of pricey, but we don't have a lot of good figures like that. But we also have our tourism economic impact figures, and I can do that too. So is the big board meeting now in person?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so do you want me to come to the next board?
Yes.
You could talk to Clark.
Well, what's
Oh,
been,
yeah.
Mary, what's been asked is we provide this information on the 23rd of September to the finance committee.
Oh, okay. Hi, Clark.
Yeah, September 21st is finance. And, you know, I think what the finance committee, you know, the budgetary process, Mary, works basically, committees give recommendations to the finance committee. Finance committee basically develops the budget and recommends it to the full board. That's kind of the process. And I think, I don't think it's a matter of what's worth funding and what's not worth funding. But as the county faces fiscal pressures, we have to basically narrow it down to say, what is mandated that we have to provide? If there's money left over, then we can fund other things that are not mandated by the state to provide. And I think that's basically the point where the finance committee is at. They're not saying that this is not a worthwhile service. I think everybody agrees it is. But do we rate it over funding, correctional officers in the jail? Probably not.
Now, is the ARPA, I thought ARPA could be used for this type of, that's what my other county tourism people are saying, is that they're being like.
Yep, and so that's how this discussion actually came to light, because I moved, like I said to this committee earlier, I moved this particular line item to the non-mandated community contributions section of the county board budget. So it basically is along with everything else that the state's not making us do, because I think they need to evaluate those line items very carefully. I did recommend that they basically take this line item from the general fund, remove it from the general fund, and fund it with ARPA funding. And that was my recommendation. They're gonna do, I won't be here. My last day is September 10th, but that would be my recommendation, is if the county feels it's worthwhile to fund it with the ARPA funding.
So. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, work with Chris to get some historical information the last couple of years of what the county has reimbursed. And then I would recommend you probably show up on September 21st, 9 o'clock for the finance committee.
All right, so. Yes, Kathy.
I have a question for you. The ads that are on TV about the bay and the hospital and all of that stuff, does that come through your?
No, that's probably the hospital.
So,
we don't, you're not gonna see a lot of our ads, because we want people from out of town to come in. So the only time you'll see an ad is on cable. Sometimes we do some Duluth because it's a good market for us. So sometimes you'll see that. But typically we're out in Minneapolis area, La Crosse, Green Bay, the Fox Valley area, Appleton. We hit a little bit of Madison. It gets a little pricey there. We don't really hit Milwaukee because that's a lot, once you hit a certain point, then they're like, but tourism's been busy. Copper Falls, I think record-breaking year last year. And then how smart of them. I mean, we were kind of upset at first when they just did the annual fee instead of a date, because people weren't ready for that. But I think people started realizing that there's so many state parks in Wisconsin that they could go and be outside and be away from everything. The things that have lasted is the waterfalls, state parks. Fishing has been phenomenal. It's been good fishing, but it's something you could do in COVID, you can social distance and everybody's fine with it. So hence, getting that map done during COVID was great. So, but I'd be happy to do that. I'll put some figures together for you, and I probably will talk to a couple of the other county board members too, just to say, let know that.
Yeah, I would talk to Pat Kenny, because he seemed to be the one that was most interested in this topic.
Okay. Okay, Clark.
That's why you're here, Mary.
Yes, I know. I'm tough. I have a tough skin. Okay, so what else? Come on. Give me another one.
I would be concerned about taking the money of ARPA to fund the thing, because when ARPA's gone, then where are you at? Then you don't have the money left, so I don't want it moved.
But no, but that buys us 2 years.
Yeah.
It buys us 2 years because we're in a deficit right now. So the more we can move to the federal side, we get a year or two at least of trying to recover our debt. Because if we don't recover the debt, there won't be anything in 2 years.
Yeah.
And hopefully some things will
Yeah.
change in 2 years. Who knows what's gonna happen? Law enforcement. And I know that the county, I know that mandated funding for jail and all that. It's just it's just for everyone.
These are ARPA dollars, so the biggest benefit I see is that we get our act together.
The other thing I want to tell you about, Clark, you probably know about this already, but I'm trying, this is what I met with we talked about several tours and things yesterday, but there is a grant program out there called Main Street Bounce Back.
Yes.
And it's not on Main, I mean, it doesn't have to be on Main Street, but basically, it's just, they're really trying to incentivize entrepreneurs to open a business in an empty building or a vacant building. But I think you could push the envelope if you had a vacant resort, a vacant cabin that somebody wants to use for business purposes. I think that could be used, but what it does is it's between, you have to open between January of 2021 and June of 2022.
Yeah.
And you are eligible for 10 grand, $10,000, and you use it for operational costs. So any realtors, I've talked to realtors and bankers and said, you know, if you have somebody interested, it's a good way that they know they're gonna get their money for rent. You need a 12-month lease or proof of purchase of sale. You need your articles of, if you're an LLC, a corporation, or whatever your business is. You need an acknowledgement letter from a chamber or economic development. I told all my people here yesterday, I will be happy to write any of those letters. It's really quite an easy one, an easy application to do, and I would be happy to come down and sit with anybody that wants it. But if you know somebody, go back to your communities and look around. If there's an empty building that somebody's, I know Roxy's just sold, and she wants to expand. So, it does include expansion too. So if an existing business is going to expand, you know, or start before June 2022.
That's probably less than what we, it's just a grant or.
It's a grant, it's free, well, nothing's free. There will be some taxes to I'm sure later on, but it's not a loan. It's definitely no match, it's money. So we've got like 4 of them in Ashland. Today, for example, the ribbon cutting was the Union Boutique, or some little boutique that opened, she's eligible for it. It's another little boutique that's opening and she's eligible for it, so yeah.
What was the name of that one?
Union Boutique, it's in 100 West Main Street, and then this one opened yesterday. We have these 4 vacant buildings across from the women's store by Burger Barn, and she opened one. There's 3 other stores, but yeah. So it's really it's a decent grant. So I hope that, and if you have any questions, call me or email me, or I'm happy to, like I said, I've get in the car and just drive down here and meet people. It's a good way to get your vacant buildings. Okay, blah, 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 blah.
Like I said, nobody's gonna stop you from talking.
Yeah, okay, I gotta be prepared to.
And Whistle Stop is taking place this year too.
It is, come out right away. Had some people, we offered a virtual thing to it, a virtual, I'll just say here first. But, yeah, we're gonna do it. We're not doing a lot of other things.
And that's a qualified for the Boston Marathon,
Yes.
and that's big.
Yes.
Are we still on other business?
Yes, we are still on other business.
So, the Parks and Rec is affiliated with, Ashland County Forestry, right?
Actually,
How
probably
we
doesn't.
got money, then you gave us the money for it.
Oh, from the, yeah, from our, community rec development grant, correct.
Just wondering how that situation is going.
The money is in the budget for next year to refund that grant program. We only had 2 applicants this year. You guys awarded those grants in May, was the last time that we met.
Right.
And so the money's in the grant, or in the budget for next year. We'll see if it gets through the budget process. I hope it does, because you guys have done a lot of really good things around the county with that money, so.
Those ones we just approved, I haven't, they been extended yet or no?
We just got the vouchers out last week, so the checks will be going out either this week or next week. So they'll have the money so they can get started on there. They were still both of them were still fundraising to raise the rest of what they needed.
Anything else for other business? I have one thing, but anybody else? So this weekend is the Ashland County Fair, and it's going on. To the supervisors, we're having the horseshoe pitching contest on Sunday at noon. This year, we're doing money instead of trophies. You'll get $20 for the first place team, $10 for the second place team, and $5 for the third place. All those that participate are getting a strawberry sundae from the 4-H club, or the 4-H booth, that's, they're making them, they're fabulous. So it's just a way to have some fun and forget about everything else going on in the world. Come and have some fun, throw some horseshoes. The people who have the least experience win the first place trophy almost every year. I don't know what that is, but it's at noon on Sunday, and it's just a great time. I have season passes for the county fair with me. I have one senior pass, which is $10, to get you into the county fair for all 4 days. You buy your passes, it's $25 for 4 days. How cheap is that? It includes your rides and all the grandstands. It's a great thing. I'm going to the dirt patch. Some year I'm gonna drive it.
One thing they do is they unhook the horse from the shoes, so that's life.
Not to see anything, but 2 years ago, I got second place.
This year you got money, John. Just a fun day. It's not, it's just a fun time. So noon on Sunday for the horseshoe pitching contest.
I don't think it's gonna be so blasted hot.
No, it's not supposed to rain this weekend.
Oh, it's supposed to rain Saturday.
Oh, don't
That
say
kinda
that.
early.
No, I'm
Saturday night,
I'm going on a
between
cruise
midnight
on
and 5.
Saturday.
Oh, yeah, between midnight and 5.
I'm doing it also like this cruise Saturday. Probably agree.
1 year it rained every single day of the fair. That was bad. All right, I'll be quiet. Any other business? Approve the expense for the vouchers. We need a motion for that. Second, all those in favor? Done. Did we get the vouchers?
That's what I mean, we don't even see them.
Bring that here. Oh, Sarah, that comes to the beginning of the meeting and then we could test for them.
That's.
At the end of the meeting, we told them.
If you approve it, then we'll approve it.
Yeah.
If you don't, then we won't say anything.
Yeah, just in the,
You just like his name.
Okay, Clark's
Clark's
on
on.
the TV.
yeah, on the voucher question, by the way, the county decided early on in my tenure with the county that I approve all the vouchers for the county. So every week I go through a big pile of vouchers and approve every voucher for the county, because in an administrative state, that's what administrators do. In the older form of government, committees did that. So we just aligned it with state law. So that's how vouchers are approved nowadays. So you can certainly review them and ask questions, perfectly acceptable, but you don't have to approve them because they go through the administrator's office. But feel free to, review them. It's encourage you to do so.
All right, and number 13 is the next meeting date. Chris, are we gonna go back to that first Wednesday again?
Yeah, we'll go back to first Wednesdays. I would say let's schedule one for September. I don't know that we'll need to actually have a meeting in September, depends on the
Okay.
card to credit thing, but for sure in October.
All right, so that would be Wednesday, September 1st.
And if we don't need to have it, Sarah or I will let you know,
All right,
but for sure we'll have one in October.
all righty.
Will it be 9 or 8?
That's at your flavor,
Oh,
I'd rather have it at 9.
6:30.
6:30 there, yeah, I like 6:30.
it's nice to have it at 8
Somebody
when the
agrees with
weather's
me.
nice. Rick, it's nice to have it at 8 while the weather's nice, but then come October, then we can do it winter hours.
Yeah, I'm retired though. We're all retired. We shouldn't have to get up that early.
That's
Wait a
right.
minute, don't say all.
I didn't even go to bed yet.
All right, I can't top that one.
Oh.
All right, 8 o'clock.
Like I said, if we don't need to have the September meeting, we'll let you know, but for
Okay.
sure, we're gonna have one in October.
Okay,
Okay, and back, one other thing, Kathy,
yes,
by signing these vouchers, it also indicates that.
yes. I like this. I do too.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
All right.
Yes.